That is a very important basic concept of this Bhagavad Gita. That once you're dealing with this material world, that means everything will be categorized either in goodness, passion, ignorance, and their combinations and permutations. O son of Pritha, that understanding by which one knows what ought to be done and what ought not to be done, what is to be feared and what is not to be feared, what is binding and what is liberating, that is in the mode of goodness. O son of Pritha, that understanding which cannot distinguish between religion and irreligion. This is happening now in the present. All over the world, there is so much confusion on all levels. People are misunderstanding this point. What is religion and what is irreligion? And as Kali Yuga progresses, this will become more and more rampant and apparent. There'll be total confusion, what is right and what is wrong. But if you read Bhagavad Gita, then you won't be confused. Remember in chapter 2, Arjuna was confused. He said, I have lost all composure due to miserly weakness. Now I am a soul surrendered unto you. We should follow in Arjuna's footsteps and surrender to Krishna. And here surrender means just accept Bhagavad Gita. Read it and accept what Krishna has to say and get out of this confusion so that you'll know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Otherwise, you will be bewildered. And if you're bewildered, you'll be the loser. Between action that should be done and action that should not be done, that is in the mode of passion. One's confused. And that understanding, which considers irreligion to be religion, and religion to be irreligion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, and which strives always in the wrong direction, O son of Partha, that is in the mode of ignorance. And as Kali Yuga progresses, we have already passed only 5,000 years of the age of Kali. The age of Kali began officially when Krishna left this planet 5,000 years ago. And as Kali Yuga progresses for the next 427,000 years, the mode of ignorance will become gradually more and more prominent. You can read more about this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. O son of Pritha, that determination which is unbreakable, which is sustained with steadfastness by yoga practice, and which controls the activities of the mind, life, and senses, is determination in the mode of goodness. But that determination, which holds fast to fruitive results in religion, economic development, and sense gratification, is of the nature of passion. Yes, a human being performs religious activities and by doing so gets some economic development and with that enjoys the senses. But there's a fourth principle, the principle of liberation. And beyond liberation is the goal of the devotees. The devotees are not satisfied simply with liberation. No, they want the fifth goal. Lord Chaitanya taught the fifth goal beyond liberation is love of God. And that is a secret confidential understanding of Bhagavad Gita. Love of God, love of Krishna. And that determination, which cannot go beyond dreaming, fearfulness, lamentation, moroseness, and illusion, such an unintelligent determination, O son of Pritha, is in the mode of darkness. We have experience of this. Sometimes we are at a job or a situation in our lives and we don't know how to better ourselves, and so we daydream, oh yes, if it could only be like this. Whereas a person who is a follower of Bhagavad Gita knows, I'm in this particular situation that I don't like because of the choices I've made. Therefore, let me correct, let me improve, let me better myself by strictly following Bhagavad Gita. The problems of human society are there only because people don't follow the advice of Krishna. But you can change things immediately by just starting to practice Bhagavad Gita. At least one should begin chanting Krishna's holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That's a beginning. Now, one of my favorite sections in the entire Bhagavad Gita, the subject of happiness. Krishna now says, O best of the Bharatas, please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys and by which he or she sometimes comes to the end of all distress. So I find this most significant. Generally, we think, oh, happiness is only one kind, but here Krishna is pointing out, no. There's three kinds of happiness. It's not all one. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So this is interesting, because the mode of goodness means sense control. The mode of goodness means sacrifice, charity, penance, austerity. And Krishna said, in the beginning, it may be just like poison, meaning it may not be very pleasing to the mind and senses in the beginning. But situating oneself in the mode of goodness by the time factor, as time passes, one starts to reap the benefits of living a life in the mode of goodness. And therefore, although it was difficult in the beginning, although it was not very enjoyable at the outset, as time passes, one reaps the benefit of the mode of goodness and becomes happy, really happy. So this we should keep in mind. This is happiness in the mode of goodness. The same can be said for the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. One great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives a similar analogy. He says that all of us are more or less under a particular kind of disease called ignorance. And that disease is just like jaundice. Now, a person with jaundice, which is a disease of the liver, such a person cannot taste anything sweet. A person with jaundice, if you give that person something sweet, to that person, because he has jaundice, the sweet, the candy, will taste extremely bitter. And that's the symptom of his disease. So similarly, each and every one of us, to a greater or lesser degree, we have a jaundice disease called ignorance. And therefore, although Krishna's holy name, or say for instance Bhagavad Gita, it is the sweetest thing. There's nothing sweeter than Krishna's holy name or the reading of Bhagavad Gita. But depending on how much we are affected by ignorance, you will find that chanting or reading Bhagavad Gita will be very bitter, like the person trying to taste sugar candy, but because he has jaundice, it's bitter. So what to do? The solution is that for a person with jaundice, sugar candy is the cure. Now, it's the cure, but it's bitter. Therefore, by force, one takes the medicine, even though it doesn't taste good. The person, by means of intelligence, realizes, I have to take my medicine. As the person takes the sugar candy, if he has the jaundice, little by little he's cured of the disease. And then as he's getting cured, the taste of the sugar becomes less bitter and more palatable. And when the person is completely cured, then he tastes the sweetness of sugar completely. In the same way, reading of Bhagavad Gita or chanting the Hare Krishna mantra in the beginning will be very, very bitter, depending on how you are situated in ignorance. But as you forcibly chant, make yourself chant, or make yourself read Bhagavad Gita, little by little your ignorance is destroyed at the root, and gradually you'll begin to taste Bhagavad Gita and this holy name of Krishna. And I am living proof of this. I have been reading Bhagavad Gita for over 30 years. I have been chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for over 30 years. And little by little, the sweetness becomes more and more apparent. And when I am fully cleansed of the disease of ignorance, I'll not be able to stop chanting. I'll not be able to stop reading Bhagavad Gita. Have you ever tried to take candy away from a baby? No, it's not possible. It's very, very difficult because that's sweetness. So similarly, when you're fully cured of the disease of ignorance, you will taste Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is non-different from Krishna himself. It's his words. And the name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna. This is the secret to chanting. That happiness, which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. So this everybody can readily identify with. In the material world, the mode of passion is very prominent. People are mad after immediate gratification of the senses, especially here where I live in America, especially here in Hollywood, Los Angeles. It is the whole economy of America is based on this mode of passion. Immediate, instant gratification. But Krishna points out, yes, it's pleasurable at the beginning, but as time passes, it becomes distasteful. Regardless, whether it's eating, mating, defending, anything that you're doing in the material world, the senses, coming in contact with the objects of the senses. In the mode of passion, it's great at the beginning, but after some time, that very same thing, you will hate it. And that happiness, which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance. Now, in verses 40 through 48, Krishna will give the definitive analysis of the subject of duty. There is no being existing, either here on earth or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems, who is freed from these three modes of material nature. This is interesting. Even the demigods are under the modes of nature. The demigods are primarily in the mode of goodness. Human beings primarily in the mode of passion. And the 8 million species lower than humans, animals, reptiles, plants, aquatics, birds, insects, like that, they are primarily in the mode of ignorance. So, the only person who is not under the influence of the modes of nature is Krishna and Krishna's pure devotee. These are the only exceptions. Therefore, we should become Krishna's pure devotee. Krishna will speak more about this in a few verses from now. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras are distinguished by their qualities born of their own natures in accordance with the material modes of nature, O chastiser of the enemy. In chapter 4, Krishna introduced us to the subject of the 4 social orders and 4 religious or spiritual orders. Generally, this is known as the caste system. And Krishna said in chapter 4 that he is the original father or creator of this Varna Ashram institution. But he did not go into much detail. Now, in this section, Krishna will define the qualities, how a person acts. We should never entertain the idea that someone is automatically born with these qualities. There may be certain inclinations, but the emphasis is on how a person acts, how a person works. It's not just because I'm born in a particular family that automatically I have those qualifications. No, I have to be trained and I have to work accordingly. Let us see what Krishna says. First, he'll begin with the Brahmana, the head of human society. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. That is so important. He emphasized work. One is a Brahmin not by birth, but by how one acts. He mentioned 9 qualifications. Peacefulness, this refers to control of the mind. Self-control indicates control of the senses. Austerity, the major austerities that a Brahmin performs: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, and no gambling. Purity, a Brahmana is supposed to be clean internally and outwardly. His body, his clothes, his work area, his environment is clean. And inwardly, the Brahmana is always meditating on the absolute truth, Krishna, and does not entertain thoughts of sense gratification. Because as soon as there are thoughts of sense gratification, that is dirty consciousness. Tolerance, or sometimes this word is used, forgiveness. A Brahmana is supposed to be tolerant of the ups and downs of this material world. We learned in chapter 2, Krishna said happiness and distress are like the change of winter and summer seasons, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So Lord Chaitanya says that we should be tolerant like a tree. The tree tolerates the scorching heat of the sun, the blistering winds of winter. People come and take the fruits and flowers and the branches of the tree. The tree may be dying out of thirst. People come and cut down the tree, but the tree never protests. So like a tree, we must be tolerant. And tolerant also means to forgive others. Sometimes others will cause us some minor pains. We should excuse them. We should forgive the offenses of others. Honesty. Honesty also means simplicity, not being duplicitous, not having an agenda, not having an ulterior motive. One should be simple and straightforward. Speak the plain truth. Knowledge. The Brahmana gets knowledge by studying Bhagavad Gita. Wisdom. The Sanskrit word vijnanam for wisdom means that by applying Bhagavad Gita, by living it, by walking it, by talking it, you will get an understanding, you will get a realization. I give the example so many times that by chanting Hare Krishna every day and by studying Bhagavad Gita every day, little by little, I get the realization of how this is true. I would have not have continued for over 30 years chanting Hare Krishna and reading Bhagavad Gita if I was not having the ability to see it materialize and have a understanding that is real and factual for my own life. I wouldn't have continued. But practically speaking, on a daily basis, I see how by applying Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom of Krishna becomes revealed to me. It becomes not theoretical, but an actual fact. Bhagavad Gita is real. Chanting Hare Krishna is real. But you'll never experience it by licking the outside jar of the bottle of honey. You have to open the bottle. You have to read Bhagavad Gita. You have to chant Hare Krishna. Then you will taste the honey. And religiousness. Religiousness means to have firm faith in Bhagavad Gita and firm faith in Krishna. Krishna is God. I have firm faith in that. And whatever Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I have firm faith in that. That is religiousness. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, leadership, these are the natural qualities of the work of a Kshatriya. So Arjuna